Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're doing something a little bit
A
different.
little bit, yeah.
Usually, we take a stack of articles or maybe a new book on tech or history, and we just break it down. But
Hmm,
today, we are putting on our archaeologist hats. Well, specifically, our New Testament scholar hats.
that's the one.
We're going to look at a very famous ancient text,
Hmm.
one you've probably heard 1,000 times in various settings, and we're going to prove that the way most people read it.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually missing the entire point.
It is a bold claim, I admit it. But the data, the text itself, it really backs it up. We're looking at the Gospel of Mark today,
Right.
specifically the parable of the sower. And the reason we're doing this is to demonstrate a hidden literary structure. It's a technique that, I'm telling you, once you see it, you can never unsee it.
Oh, I love those.
Yeah, it changes the text from, a simple agricultural story into something so much more complex and, frankly, so much more profound.
That's fantastic. It's like finding a secret map on the back of the Declaration of Independence or something. And the specific tool we're using today has a great name. It's called the Markan Sandwich.
That's right. In academic circles, if you want to sound impressive at a dinner party, it's called intercalation.
Intercalation. Okay, that sounds very dry and dusty.
It does, doesn't it? But Markan sandwich is the perfect descriptor because it describes the physical shape of the storytelling.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately. We aren't talking about lunch, obviously. What exactly is a Markan sandwich in literature?
So imagine you're telling a story. We'll call that story A. You start telling story A, you get the action moving. But before you finish it, before you get to the resolution, you suddenly stop.
Just cut.
You cut away entirely and you insert a completely different story or a different scene. We'll call that story B right smack in the middle. Then, once story B is finished, you go back and you finish story A.
So the structure is literally ABA.
Exactly. A is the bread and B is the meat. And here is the critical part that most readers miss. The meat is the most important part of the sandwich.
Ah.
The reason the author splits story A in half is because the interruption story B provides the interpretive key for the whole thing. If you just read the outer story, you might get the plot, but you'll miss the theological point. You have to read the meat to understand the bread.
That is fascinating. So the interruption isn't just, bad editing or a weird tangent. It's a spotlight.
Yes.
It's the author basically grabbing you by the shirt and saying, hey, put your glasses on. This is how you're supposed to view the outer story.
Precisely. And today we are going to walk through this text, Mark chapter 4, verses 3 through 20, step by step. We're going to treat this like a lab experiment. We have the text, we have the Greek keywords, and we're going to see how this sandwich structure completely changes the meaning of the parable of the sower.
Let's dive in. We're calling this the mission. We are going to prove that if you don't look for this structure, you miss the actual point Jesus was trying to make.
Yeah.
So, step one, let's just look at the plain text, the narrative flow.
Yeah.
Before we slice the sandwich, we need to know what ingredients we're holding.
Good call. So if you were just reading this straight through in your Bible without stopping to analyze, here's the scene. It starts in verse 3. Jesus is teaching a large crowd by the lake. And the crowd is so big, he has to get into a boat and push out a little from the shore.
Creating this kind of natural amphitheater, right? The sound would carry over the water.
Exactly. It's a great setup. And he tells them a story, a parable, about a farmer.
A very relatable image for that time and place. A farmer goes out to sow seed, and frankly, this farmer seems a bit reckless with his seed scattering. He's not planting in neat little rows.
No, he is broadcasting it. He's throwing handfuls of seed everywhere. And in the story, we get 4 distinct scenarios, 4 outcomes, all based on where that seed lands. Scenario 1, some seed falls on the path.
And this would be the hard-packed dirt where people walk between the fields, yeah.
Exactly that. It's like concrete. The seed just sits on top of the hard ground. It can't penetrate, and the birds come and eat it immediately.
So it's gone. Game over before it even starts.
Instantly. Okay, scenario 2.
Let's hear it.
Seed falls on rocky places. Now, this is really interesting. In that region, you often have a thin layer of topsoil sitting on top of a limestone shelf. The soil is incredibly shallow.
Right.
And because it's shallow, it heats up really fast in the sun. So the seed springs up quickly. It looks like instant success.
It's actually the fastest grower of the bunch at first.
It is. It looks fantastic for a day or two. But because there's no depth of earth, the roots hit that rock shelf, and they can't go down to find moisture or anchor themselves. So as soon as the sun gets high in the sky, the plant gets scorched.
No root. So it withered.
And on, a flash in the pan.
Okay, scenario 3.
Scenario 3 is the seed among the thorns. This seed falls into the soil, it grows, but the thorns, the weeds, they grow right up with it. And the thorns are aggressive. They act as a competitor for all the resources, the water, the nutrients, the sunlight.
So they just choke the plant out.
They choke it. So you get a plant, you might even get a stalk, but you get no grain. It's unfruitful.
And finally, scenario 4, the one we're all waiting for, the happy ending.
The good soil. The seed falls, it takes root, it grows up, and it produces a crop. And the yield is massive, 30, 60, even 100 times what was sown. An incredible return.
And that's where the story ends in verse 9. Jesus just sort of drops the mic and says, hey, if you have ears, listen.
That's the end of the story part.
Okay, so that's the story. Now, if we were reading this like a modern novel, we'd expect the next paragraph to be, and the crowd cheered, or the crowd was confused and started murmuring. But the camera angle just shifts. And this is where things get weird in the text. We are now moving into verses 10 through 13.
Yes. This is the interruption. The scene changes abruptly. The crowd is gone. The boat is gone. Jesus is suddenly alone, indoors maybe, with the 12 disciples and a few others who were close to him.
So it's a private conversation now.
A private conversation. And they ask him, essentially, what was that about? Why are you talking in these riddles, these parables?
And Jesus gives this incredibly heavy, almost cryptic answer. He talks about a secret.
He does. He says, the secret of the kingdom of God has been given to you, meaning the disciples, his inner circle. But for everyone else, the outsiders, everything is in parables. And then he quotes the prophet Isaiah.
Right.
He says they get parables so that they may be ever seeing but never perceiving, and ever hearing but never understanding.
Which feels incredibly harsh. I mean, it sounds like he's saying the stories are almost designed to confuse people on the outside. It sounds really exclusionary.
It does sound that way on the surface. It's one of the hard sayings of the New Testament, for sure. But then, and this is where it gets really interesting for our sandwich, he turns to the disciples, the ones who supposedly have the secret, and he rebukes them.
Right, he doesn't congratulate them or high-five them for being on the inside.
Not at all. It's a sharp rebuke. He asks them, point blank, don't you understand this parable? How then will you understand any parable?
Ouch. So he gives them the secret key, and they still can't open the door.
Yep.
They're fumbling with the lock.
Exactly. And then finally we get to the third part of the text, verses 14 through 20. This is the explanation. Jesus decodes the allegory for them.
And this part mirrors the first part perfectly.
Perfectly. He says the farmer isn't sowing agricultural seed, he's sowing the word.
And he breaks down the four soils again, but this time with the meaning attached. So the path. That's when Satan comes immediately to take the word away.
Right. The rocky places, those are the people who receive the word with joy. It's emotional, it's instant, but when trouble or persecution comes because of the word, they fall away. They have no root.
The thorns.
The thorns are the worries of this life, the deceitfulness of wealth, and the desire for other things. Those things creep in and choke the word.
And the good soil are those who hear the word, accept it, and produce a crop. So that's the plain text. Narrative, interruption, explanation. Now, let's get our scalpels out. Let's move to step 2, identifying the structure.
This is where we visualize the sandwich. If you have the text in front of you, or even if you can just picture it in your mind, we have a very clear ABA prime structure.
Okay, let's define the layers for everyone so they can picture. What's the top bun?
The top bun, our section A, is verses 3 to 9. That is the parable itself, the story of the sower.
Got it. Top bun is the story. What about the meat?
Then we have the meat, section B. This is verses 10 to 13. This is that private, intense conversation about the purpose of parables, the secret, and the disciples' own lack of understanding.
The meat is the private conversation, the interruption.
Exactly. And finally, the bottom bun, which we call section A prime, is verses 14 to 20. This is the explanation of the parable. It mirrors the top bun, the story, point for point.
Now, why does this matter? I mean, why go through the trouble of labeling A and B and A prime? What does that get us?
It gets us everything because, as we said at the start, most people just read A and A prime. They read the story and they read the explanation, they connect them. They treat the middle part, the meat, as just a little transition scene.
Right. Oh, the disciples asked a question, he answered. Moving on.
Exactly. But structurally, Mark puts that conversation in the center for a reason. It is the lens. You cannot understand the soil or the crop or the sower without understanding the dynamic that is happening in that middle section.
So the middle section is the key to the code. If we skip the interruption, we just get a nice moral lesson about being a good person and having a receptive heart.
You do.
But if we read the interruption carefully, we get something else entirely.
Something much more challenging. And to prove it, we're going to start tracking some keywords. This is step 3 in our analysis. We're going to look at the Greek word akoush.
Akoush, which means to hear or to listen, right?
That's the one. And this word is the framing device for the entire sandwich. It appears continuously like a drumbeat. Let's look at section A, the top bun, the story itself.
Okay.
The very first word Jesus says to the crowd in verse 3 is a command. Listen. In Greek, akuite.
An imperative, not a suggestion.
It's a command. And how does he end the story in verse 9? He says, whoever has ears to hear, akuyen, let them hear, akute.
So this story is literally bookended by this demand for auditory attention. Listen. And if you can hear, then you better listen.
Precisely. Now let's jump to the meat, section B. This is where the irony just kicks into high gear. Jesus talks about the outsiders.
Right.
He says in verse 12 that they are hearing, akutantes, but never understanding.
They're physically hearing the sound waves, the vibrations are hitting their eardrums, but the signal isn't decoding. They're getting the audio, but not the message.
Beautifully put, right. And then when we get to the bottom bun, section A prime, the explanation, look at how the different soils are defined. Every single group, the path, the rocky, the thorns, the good, they are all defined by the fact that they hear akusensin, the word.
Oh, I'm seeing it right here. Verse 15, as soon as they hear. Verse 16, when they hear the word. Verse 18 are the ones who hear the word. Verse 20 are the ones who hear the word.
It is relentless. It's everywhere. This tells us that the parable isn't really about farming techniques. It's not an agricultural lesson. It is a test of auditory reception.
A hearing test.
It's a hearing test. The variable isn't the seed. The seed is always the same. It's good seed. The variable isn't the sower. He does his job. He sows everywhere. The variable is the listening. The question isn't, is the farmer good? The question is, who is truly listening?
That puts a lot of pressure on the listener, on us. It's not a passive story you just consume. It's an active test. It demands that we check our own ears.
It absolutely does.
Okay, let's move to step 4, another key word. This one seems obvious, but the sheer volume of it is surprising. The word is sow.
In Greek, spirou. If you look at section A, the story, and section A prime, the explanation, this word appears 12 times.
12 times in just a few verses. That's a real drumbeat.
It is. You get a sower went out to sow. As he was sowing, the seed that was sown. But here is the visual that the text is creating. Jesus isn't just telling a story about a fictional farmer in the past. He is the farmer.
Right. He is sitting there in the boat by the lake teaching. He is sowing the word, this very parable, right in front of them.
Exactly. The text uses the word spirion for sower. Jesus is enacting the parable at the exact moment he is telling it. The density of that word sow connects the action of the story directly to what is happening in real time with the disciples. He is sowing information into their ears.
Which makes the outcome even more high stakes. If he is sowing right now, then they are being tested right now. It's not a hypothetical scenario from a textbook. It is a live fire exercise.
It's live. And that leads us directly to step 5. We need to look at what exactly is being sown. This is the keyword word, or in the Greek, logos.
Now, in the story of the top bun, section A, it's just seed. That's the term used.
Correct. In the first section, the word seed is used in the purely agricultural sense. But when we get to the bottom bun, the explanation, there's a massive shift in vocabulary. The seed becomes the word logos.
I'm looking at the data here in the text. The word word appears 8 times in the explanation, and seed appeared roughly 8 times in the setup. It's almost a perfect one-to-one swap.
It is a perfect substitution cipher, the authors being extremely deliberate. But look at the implication of that swap. In the explanation, Jesus says things like, trouble or persecution comes because of the word, or worries of the world, choke the word, or Satan comes and takes away the word.
That changes the whole vibe. The word isn't just passive information that you can take or leave. It's an agent of change. It's almost dangerous.
Yes. The logos is an active force. It provokes a reaction. It provokes Satan. It provokes persecution. It provokes worries. It's not just that the plant dies from bad conditions. It's that the very presence of the logos in the soil causes a conflict that the shallow soil can't handle.
That is a powerful distinction. It's not just, I tried to be a good person and I failed. It's the message. The logos entered my life and it caused an earthquake and I wasn't prepared for the shaking.
Exactly. The word is disruptive. And if your soil, your heart, your life isn't deep enough to handle that disruption, the crop fails.
So we have hearing, we have sowing, and we have the active, dangerous word. But let's go back to the meat of the sandwich. We have to look at the emotional center of this whole passage. Step 6. The key word, understand.
This is the gut punch section of the text.
And the Greek words we're looking at here are syniemi and oida.
Right. So in section B, the meat, Jesus creates this contrast between the outsiders and the insiders. He says the outsiders hear, but they never understand.
Which, again, we expect. They're outsiders. They're the crowd on the shore. Of course, they don't get the inside scoop.
But then, in verse 13, he turns the gun on the disciples. He looks at his own inner circle, the ones who just received the secret, and he says, "Don't you understand, to oidate, this parable?"
The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife. He just told them, you have the secret of the kingdom. And in the very next breath, they prove they don't get it. They're just as confused as the crowd.
They are acting exactly like the outsiders. They are the living embodiment of hearing but not understanding. And Jesus raises the stakes even further. He doesn't just stop there. He says, how then will you understand any parable?
So this isn't just about one confusing story. This specific parable is the Rosetta Stone. If they don't get this one, they don't get anything he's trying to teach them.
Correct. This interaction in the middle, this profound failure to understand by the very people who should, that is the lens through which we have to view the whole thing. The disciples are failing the auditory test in real time, and it tells us that understanding isn't automatic just because you're in the club or have a special status.
That connects perfectly to step 7, the keyword parable itself. The Greek is parabole.
Yes. This is meta-commentary. The text isn't just a parable, it's a discussion about parables. The word parable clusters right in that middle section, section B. The disciples ask him about the parables, plural.
Right, like what's your deal with all these stories?
Exactly. And Jesus immediately distinguishes between this parable, singular, the one he just told, and any parable, or all the parables.
So section B transforms the text. It stops being a simple allegory about being a good person, and it becomes a lesson on how to decipher Jesus' entire ministry, his entire teaching style.
Right. It's a masterclass in spiritual listening. It implies that Jesus' chosen teaching mode parables requires a specific kind of engagement from the listener. You can't just passively absorb it like you're watching TV. You have to have ears to hear. You have to dig. You have to ask questions, even if you look foolish doing it.
Before we put it all together, there is one more specific connection we have to highlight. This is step 8, the image shift. We talked about seed becoming word, but there's another swap in here that is, well, it's terrifying.
Ah, yes, the birds.
In section A, the story says, the birds came and ate it up. Very natural. It's almost pastoral, right?
Yeah.
We've all seen birds pecking at seeds in a garden.
That's totally normal. But in section A prime, the explanation, who are the birds?
Satan comes and takes away the word.
And that is a jarring shift. You go from this innocent, almost quaint nature imagery birds pecking at seeds to the ultimate personification of cosmic evil.
It reveals a sinister spiritual reality hiding behind the scenes of the everyday.
And it reinforces why we need the key found in the middle section. If you only read the top bun, if you stay on the surface of the story, it's just birds. It's just bad luck. Oh, well, it didn't work out for that seed. But if you have the key, the explanation, which is unlocked by the disciples' failure in the middle, you realize it's spiritual warfare. The moment the word is sown on the path, the enemy is active. He is there to snatch it.
That gives me chills.
Yeah.
It's not just a bird. It's a theft. It's an intentional act.
It is. The text is saying that when you hear the word and don't understand it, it's not just that you forgot about it by lunchtime, it's that it was stolen. There is an active opponent trying to prevent the crop from ever even starting.
Okay, we have all the ingredients.
Yeah.
We have sliced the bread. We've checked the meat. We've analyzed the condiments. Let's do step 9, complete analysis and synthesis. Let's put the sandwich back together and see what it tastes like.
Let's do it. Let's look at the narrative arc that this structure creates. We have Jesus, the sower. He is sowing the word. We counted it. The concept of sowing is mentioned, 16 times in the text if you count both seed and word?
He's doing it directly in front of the 12. They're sitting in the front row. They have the best seats in the house. There's no one between them and the sower.
Right. They are receiving the seed on what should be the best possible soil, prime real estate. But what happens in the middle section, in the meat? They turn to him and ask, what does this mean?
They fail to understand. They reveal their own confusion.
So despite Jesus sowing perfectly, the disciples, the supposed good soil, prove themselves to be poor soil in that specific moment. They are hearing the sound, but they aren't understanding the message.
Wait a second. So the parable is, It's happening to them as he's telling it.
That is the absolute genius of the Markan Sandwich here. The parable is self-demonstrating. As the characters in the story are hearing the story about hearing, they are failing to hear.
That is so meta. It's like a hall of mirrors. It's a parable about parables told to people who don't understand parables, to show them they don't understand parables.
It is. It's brilliant. Jesus says, the secret is given to you. And he immediately follows it up with, don't you understand? The text is demonstrating in real time that proximity to Jesus being in the inner circle, sitting at his feet, being one of the 12, doesn't guarantee understanding.
You can be standing right next to the sower and still be rocky soil. You can have the best teacher in the world and still have thorns in your heart.
Exactly. And that is what that verbal web we traced holds together. All those keywords we tracked. Akush, spare, sow, logos, word, syniemi, understand, and parable. They aren't just random repeated words. They bind the story, the interruption, and the explanation into a single, cohesive, and deeply challenging argument.
And the argument is, it's not enough to just be there. It's not enough to be on the right team. You have to actively engage. You have to perceive. You have to have those ears to hear.
Yes. Now, of course, the disciples eventually became good soil. They eventually understood. They went on to write the Gospels, to build the church. But Mark deliberately records this moment of failure, the sandwich of confusion, to show us that understanding is not automatic.
It's a process. It's a struggle.
It's a struggle. Understanding the word is a battle. It's a battle against Satan. It's a battle against shallowness and fear of persecution. And it's a battle against the distractions and riches of the world.
And a battle against our own hard-headedness, our own lack of perception.
Indeed. It just strips away any possible spiritual pride. If the apostles themselves, face-to-face with Jesus, struggled to understand the basic word 101, then we should probably approach the text with a lot of humility and listen very, very carefully.
This changes everything about how I read this passage. I always thought of it as a sorting mechanism. You know, which soil am I? Oh, I hope I'm the good soil because I go to church and I read my Bible. But the disciples were with Jesus, and he looked at them and basically said, how are you ever going to get this?
It's a profound, humbling check for every reader in every generation. If the 12 struggled, we should probably listen a little harder.
So what does this all mean for us? We've decoded the sandwich. We've seen the hidden structure. What's the takeaway?
I think on one level, it means we need to become active readers of these texts. We need to look for these interruptions, these seams in the narrative. When a biblical author cuts away from the main action, don't tune out. Lean in. That's usually where the treasure is buried.
Look for the meat in this sandwich.
Always look for the meat. And specifically with the parable of the sower, it means we need to constantly check our hearing. Yes, whoever has ears to hear, let them hear. It's an ongoing command. It's not a one-time status update you can put on your profile. It's a daily, moment-by-moment act of tuning in.
Well, there you have it. The Markan Sandwich, a literary device that unlocks the secrets of the kingdom. Who knew that structurally analyzing ancient Greek could be this exciting?
It's the best kind of detective work there is.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We talked about the disciples failing the test right in front of Jesus. They have the secret. They were the insiders, yet they struggled to be good soil and to understand the word. So, if they struggled, what does that demand of us today? The text suggests that hearing isn't a passive activity. It's a dangerous active pursuit. Are we actually listening, or are we just letting the sound waves hit us while the birds circle overhead?
That is the question, isn't it?
Next time you're reading, look for the sandwiches. You might be surprised what you find in the middle. Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you